Welcome to Civilnet. My guest today is Peter Hosharian, a Los Angeles-based attorney and musician who represents a generation that may live 7,000 miles away from Armenia, but is still deeply connected and involved. He is very active on social media and engaging in political discussions after the revolution and of course before as well. I wanted to talk to him today to understand what he expects when he comes to Armenia and what he hopes for his children. Thanks for joining me today, Peter.
Thank you, Sareen. Thank you for having me.
So I want to know a little bit about your upbringing.
Well, to go back to what you were saying, what I expect about Armenia, my love for Armenia was pretty much innate. My dad was a prominent composer, conductor in the Los Angeles area, very involved with the Armenian community. I went to an Armenian school, Mesrobian School in Montebello, California, and pretty much, culturally, with my education, everything like that, it's within me to be Armenian, even though I've lived in the United States all my life. So, my dad instilled that in me. My mom and my dad both instilled that in me, and I want to give that same type of gift to my own children. Yeah.
And why is it important to you that your kids are deeply connected?
Because this is a culture that has many treasures. There are certain things that, as United States citizens, we are a melting pot of different types of culture, and each culture has its beauty. And my culture is the Armenian culture, and my ancestors have lived here for centuries, millennia, in this region, and also what we call Western Armenia today, which is part of Turkey. And both all my four grandparents and their lineage from before that come from Erzurum, Artvin, Trabzon, and other villages in the Western Armenia area. So that heritage is instilled with me, and I find it very important to keep that alive and to never let that go, because other cultures can learn from our cultures as we can learn from other cultures.
And when you're in Armenia, how do you connect with both the country itself and the people of Armenia?
Well, it's going to Armenian school and speaking to my grandmother who lived with us in Armenian, I learned the language, and my language is my Armenian isn't great. It's not as fluent as my English, but I can communicate. I can get around, and it's. I don't really feel like a tourist here when I come. It's almost only the first couple of days, and then I'm right into the swing of things. I can talk to, communicate pretty much about anything in this country. So it's good to know the language in here, but a lot of people also speak English and several other languages. So anyone can pretty much come here and feel at home. Yeah.
Do you think your kids in these last few weeks that they've been here, do you think they've been able to connect as well? Or is it something that is being, you're guiding them into?
Oh, absolutely. My kids also speak Armenian, so it was easy for them to make that transition. Again, every time they speak with, they have several, my wife has many relatives here because she was originally from Armenia. She was born here, and she came to the States in 1987, but she's always kept a connection with her relatives here. So their kids and our kids, when we come here, they get together and they play in their yards, and they really experience the Armenian way of living. It's different from the United States. We're more protective of our kids as far as letting them go out and play and stuff like. But over here in these neighborhoods, it's like they go out and play, and the parents come out a little bit later on and come and they walk around. Each type of area has a what they call a bug, which is like a yard, and for the kids they have a little park and a little playground and some swing sets and a little soccer field and stuff like that. So the kids can go ahead and make themselves busy, especially in the summer months when they don't have school. So it's it's kind of really fun for them. They really haven't noticed so much of a transition being in this country. Yeah.
So do you think, after spending some time here this summer, do you think, is it on your mind about ever permanently moving here?
Well, that's always been in the back of my mind, and I don't know if it was more of a pipe dream probably when you came here last, which was 4 years ago in 2015. Now at least I could see myself coming here on a part-time basis at least, and immersing myself in this culture and going back to the culture where I was born, the United States. And it's really difficult. There's a lot of things that we need to improve on here. When you come here, you can't really expect to have the same type of conveniences that you may have in the United States, but I don't expect to see that right away, and especially the revolution being so young, just happened last year, and things which were on the path to injustice before now are in the path to justice, although slowly but surely moving there. And the thing I noticed most, the pollution in the city has to be taken care of. Environmentally, we have to be more conscious here. I would say, a lot of the smoking laws, you walk in there, they allow smoking in indoor places, and that's the one thing you got to get used to. There's other types of things that you would normally expect when you're in the United States. However, this city has a vibe to it that I can't sometimes get in the United States, and that beauty of the people walking in the cafes and the cities, and you can just get out and walk whenever you want, and feel safe and comfortable, and see people that you see, and it's such a close-knit community that should not ever be lost, regardless. But other things we can improve on, just like the United States can improve on a lot of things.
Of course.
Yeah.
You said the last time you were here was before the revolution.
Right.
Now, we're 1 year post-revolution.
Right.
What are the main differences you see, improvements or otherwise?
I see that people are a little more hopeful. Like we were speaking earlier, that there was more of a complaining society, and now it's some people still complain. You're going to have complainers, but that's people's personality. But it seems like more of the exception rather than the rule. People are more hopeful, and I see not as many people saying, I'd like to come to the United States, or I'd like to leave the country, or I'm planning to take my kids here and there. It's that you don't hear as much of. That I heard a lot in 2015. Not so much anymore. Now I hear people wanting to stay, wanting to maybe open up a business, wanting to do this and do that. And I noticed a lot of times in speaking to people that there was, at that time, it was a lot of the businesses were mafia dominated. So to start a business, you'd have to pay a little kickback to somebody or whoever was there, and that's stopped, according to everyone I've spoken to, which is a grand improvement. As far as being able to know that you could safely open up a business and take care of your family. Yeah.
You said you have family here, your wife's family, relatives, cousins. Yeah. Is it easy for you to, connect with them and speak with them about either politics or social issues or environmental issues?
Yeah, a lot of, some of them are very politically active, some are not. Some don't like to talk about it. Some were afraid to talk about it prior to the revolution. If we talked about something, we would sometimes Skype from the United States, and we would say, what's going on with this? And because a lot of times we get the news in Armenian, it's hard to decipher a lot of the stuff. Civilnet makes it very much easier for us to kind of know what's happening in the political world. But I noticed we would start talking about something, and change the subject because they thought maybe someone was listening or someone, but that's not the case anymore. People are more open to talk about politics and stuff and things of that nature. Yeah.
And you're pretty open about talking about politics on
Right.
Social media.
Right.
What brings that out in you?
I've always had a nature of doing what's best for the communities and the people around me, and I'm politically active even in the United States. I'm also politically active in Armenia because it's the country of my ancestors and the country of my heritage, and I'm very, very interested in making sure that this, a small country that's surrounded by enemies that on paper chances of existence probably would be not very high, but it's the courage of the people and the strength of the people, and I want the best. I want the best for them. So that's why I get more politically involved. And if you're not politically involved, then if you're silent, then forces of evil take over, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
And how do you stay informed about what's really going on in Armenia when you live in Los Angeles? I know you mentioned, Skyping with relatives,
Right.
and reading Civilnet, following Civilnet, but what are some other ways that you could, share with other people about how to stay informed?
Facebook has a lot of ways and other types of social media that you can, if you follow certain pages and certain people that are politically active here. I started really my political. I generally have a sense of what was going on, but really in 2013 when Rafi Hovhannisyan was running for president and the Barev movement and all of that, I really became involved because also personally I know Rafi and his family since they were from the United States, and our parents go back centuries, I think, with theirs because we come from the same town of Erzurum and all that, and so it was kind of really personal to me to see that someone I actually knew was was right on the doorstep of becoming president of the United States, and it really got me going as to what's going on in this city and what's going on in this country. So those things, but you can find a lot of things if you just gotta search and gotta ask around, and there are political parties that you can follow and listen to what they have to say, and keep an open mind, of course. Make sure that you're getting all sides of the story, and and sometimes we meet with some people in the United States that we know that are politically involved, and we sit down and we have coffee or dinner and we discuss these issues. So, yeah.
And
also, I don't mean to cut you off, Salpi Hosharian with the USC Armenian Institute of Studies is a really good source to know what's going on in Armenia. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They do post a lot about what's going on in Armenia, and they follow current events in Gharapagh, so that is a great source to stay informed.
Yeah.
While you've been in Armenia, have you stayed mostly in Yerevan, or have you been, visiting the regions and the marzes?
We mainly are in Yerevan because we rented an apartment in Yerevan here on an Airbnb, and I would recommend that for people traveling. Hotel industry is going to get on me right now, but the hotels kind of keep you more. It's more for as a tourist rather than, you're in an apartment in the middle of the city with the locals, and you're walking out and you're really right away immersed into the culture as opposed to, being in a hotel. But we have, since I said my wife Stella has relatives here, they're on the outskirts of the city. And those are you really see the real Yerevan life actually on a lot of the outskirts of the city. The city's more of a metropolis. So, but her relatives live in Cheremushka, Yerort Mas, Charbakh, other Malatya, other types of, all of these little zones around the city which have their own little beauty in and of themselves. So we've been going there. We've gone to Garni and Gerard, which is the pre-Christian and post-Christian symbols of Armenian history. And then we've climbed to the top of Mount Aragats, which we didn't climb, we took a car, which is the highest peak in current geographical Armenia. Of course, we consider Mount Ararat, Masi Sensis, part of our country too. And then we've gone to Dilijan, which was absolutely gorgeous, probably the most magical place on earth, I would say, and stayed in a little inn there, and it was really nice to be there. And we'll do a couple of other things before we get back.
What can you tell me about the contrast between these areas and Yerevan? What stands out to you?
Well, once you get out of Yerevan, basically this country is made up of villagers. The only other bigger cities is Gyumri, which we may go to in a couple of days. But once you get out of the city, it's they're villages, and a lot of them. I know in 2015 we have some relatives in the Artashat region, in a little village of Artashat called Aygezart. And I know they were cutting off the water supply at like 2 p.m. So, and a lot of those places still, I don't know if they do or not. We're going to be going there, but I know a lot of them don't have indoor plumbing, and a lot of sort of primitive conditions and still in a lot of these places. But I hear that more the electricity and the plumbing and everything is like it's making their ways to the outskirts. And those are the differences. I mean, I remember being irate when I was there and the water got cut off. I said, "Jurchika, she goes, they cut it at 2 o'clock. And I said, how could this be? I mean, these people, there's people here who are, billionaires, and there's millions of dollars within it, and it's a small country. At the very least, you wouldn't allow your people to live in such primitive conditions. And I'm hopeful that that's going to be changing little by little. Yeah.
So you're a musician. You're in a band. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'm in a band with my brother, we call the Hosharian Brothers band. My brother is a full-time musician, so and I join him from time to time playing at various functions like weddings and other types of events. And that's been instilled in us by my dad, who was a composer, conductor, it's a nice way to keep my culture alive and also have fun and do something different than practice law. Yeah, so that's it's been great. We've been doing this for about 25 years now. My dad passed away almost 30 years ago, so we took on whatever he was doing. My brother really has taken that on he's a conductor and composer and orchestra, and he has several other bands that he works with, yeah.
So while you've been in Armenia, how have you been experiencing the musical scene here?
Oh, the musical scene is second to none. My dad was a very close friend of a lot of the prominent stars here who are like Robert Amirkhanyan and Ruben Matevosyan and Rais Makhdicyan and some of these stars that were back in the 70s, and they used to come to our home in Los Angeles, and my dad would put concerts together for all of them, Jivan Gasparian and others like that. And so I meet up with some of them, like Robert Amirkhanyan. We were together for a few days last time in 2015, so it was a great experience. And the scene is there's music on the streets. I mean, real good Armenian music, even the street musicians who play. The Armenian jazz scene has come. We were at the Forsh Club yesterday, and it was so wonderful. He sings with so much passion, and everybody was having a great time. And I could see similar, like, there are not many supper clubs like that in Los Angeles, and there are several here. There's the Malchaz's Club, there's Forsh's Club, there's a couple of others that really promote the supper club type of atmosphere, which is great. We walk by a lot of these statues of the great musicians like Aram Khachaturian, who my father knew as well.
Speaking of Aram Khachaturian, when he came to Los Angeles, I believe in the 1960s, he stayed with your father and your mother. Can you tell me anything about that time?
Oh yeah, my dad, he was a composer and conductor, and so and he spoke Russian, Armenian, English, but Aram Khachaturian was a Russian speaker. It was natural for my dad to be the one to chaperone him and show him around. And for 2 weeks he did that in the 1960s. I believe it was the late 1960s. And they had many events, and they went to many different. I mean, you can imagine how many people were trying to see him, and so there was nothing but a full 2-week schedule with Aram Khachaturian. And my dad used to speak to him, and my dad would always talk about how he would even watch some of my dad's music and say, "This is wonderful, you keep this up." And my dad felt so proud to hear that from the Aram Khachaturian. There's one funny anecdote that when they were packing their bags, he was staying at the Beverly Hilton, and my mom and my dad were in his hotel room helping him pack to go home, and he had a lot of stuff, and it was taking a long time, and it was really, really late at night, and Aram Khachaturian was he was twiddling his thumbs or doing something and wasn't being very helpful, and my mom just out of the blue goes, "Are you just going to sit there, or are you going to help us out?" So, and my dad, as they say in Armenian, because he was so embarrassed that, oh my God, what is my wife telling Aram Khachaturian? And so Aram Khachaturian looks at my wife and gives her a deep stare and says, Joseph Stalin once raised his voice at me, and now you're raising your voice at me. And my dad was like, oh my God, and then he smiled and he said, "You know what? I like that. You're a strong Armenian woman."
She sounds it.
Yeah.
She sounds like a tough cookie.
Well, she doesn't put up with anything. It doesn't matter who you are.
Which is the best way to be.
Right. Exactly.
So, what do you hope that people, either in the diaspora in Los Angeles, or even here in Armenia, know about Armenia? What are you leaving here with? What are your major, epiphanies and findings?
I'm hoping that people of Armenian descent will come here more often, will travel here. Some may want to live here. Some may, I'm hoping that, along with donating to organizations and donating, and being involved in the United States, come here on a vacation. You can help the economy at the same time. You can get a spiritual experience of being in the town of your ancestors, and that's what I'm hopeful for a lot of Armenians, to get more involved in trying to help people out. We have to. I kind of get ahead of myself that Armenia has to do this, and this. We have to provide them maybe with some ideas, even in conversations. Plant seeds. Don't try to be overbearing. This is their country. They're going to run it, and it's going to move at the pace that it's going to move. But at the same time, give that encouragement, that little help to get involved. And even people who are non-Armenians. This is one of the best places to visit. I mean, it's safe. There's so much history. and there's so much nightlife, and you can have a great time, and you can have also a very, very spiritual experience coming to Armenia.
And of course, Armenia has a lot to offer, and we have a lot to learn from Armenia.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We have a lot to learn. There's a certain, like I said, a certain vibe, a certain soul that Armenia presents that you can't find really anywhere else, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us and telling us about your time in Armenia.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for watching Civilnet.